The crimson glow of the burning homestead illuminated Tabitha Everett's tear-stained face as she stood frozen, watching flames devour the only home she'd ever known, along with everything and everyone she held dear. Montana Territory, 1878, was unforgiving at the best of times, but on this bitter October night it had taken everything. "Pa, Ma!" Tabitha screamed, her voice barely audible over the roaring inferno. Two neighbors held her back as she fought to run toward the blaze. There was no use, the fire had spread too quickly while the family slept. Only Tabitha, who'd stepped outside to check on a distressed horse, had escaped. "There's nothing you can do, Tabby," Mrs. Jenkins said, her weathered face reflecting the orange glow. "They're gone, child. They're gone." The 22-year-old collapsed to her knees, the weight of sudden orphanhood crushing her chest. Her parents, her younger brother, all claimed by the merciless flames. The cattle they'd raised, the modest savings hidden beneath the floorboards, the carefully preserved photographs of grandparents she'd never met, everything reduced to ash and cinder. Dawn broke over the still smoldering ruins, revealing the full extent of the devastation. Tabitha stood motionless, her cotton nightdress now filthy with soot, her long brown hair tangled and singed at the edges. She'd not spoken since her collapse the night before. "You'll stay with us for now," Mrs. Jenkins offered, draping a blanket over Tabitha's shoulders. "Until you sort things out." But Tabitha barely heard her. What things were there to sort? What remained to salvage? The small community of Durango, Montana, was tight-knit but struggling. The Jenkins had 5 children of their own in their 2-room cabin. The Millers were leaving for Oregon next week. The Thompsons couldn't feed another mouth with winter approaching. She had nowhere to go. 3 days later, the funeral was held. 3 wooden crosses marked fresh graves on the hillside overlooking what remained of the Everett homestead. Tabitha stood alone after the others had departed, her body numb, her mind vacant. "Miss Everett," a deep voice startled her from behind. She turned to find a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. Noah Daniels removed his hat respectfully. He was 30 years old, broad-shouldered from years of ranch work, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of a summer sky. His dark hair curled slightly at the nape of his neck, and a well-trimmed beard framed a solemn expression. "I'm sorry for your loss," he continued. "Your father was a good man." Tabitha nodded slightly. She recognized Noah Daniels. He owned the largest ranch in the county, stretching across 5,000 acres of prime Montana grassland. Her father had occasionally done carpentry work for him, crafting furniture and repairing buildings. "Thank you," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper from disuse and grief. Noah shifted his weight, seemingly uncomfortable. "Mrs. Jenkins mentioned you might be looking for work. I could use help at the main house." Tabitha blinked, processing his words. "Work?" "Cooking, cleaning, mending. My housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, isn't getting any younger and the ranch hands keep her busy enough. The pay isn't much, but there's room and board." His offer hung between them, weighted with implication. It was charity, thinly disguised as employment, but it was the only lifeline extended to her. The alternative was becoming a burden on families who could ill afford another mouth to feed. "I can cook," she said finally. "And so?" Noah nodded. "Good. You can start tomorrow if you'd like." "I'll send the wagon." Before she could respond properly, he replaced his hat, nodded once more, and strode back to his horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion that pranced impatiently at his approach. Tabitha watched him ride away, feeling something stir within her besides grief for the first time in days. Not hope, it was too early for that, but perhaps a tiny spark of purpose in a world suddenly gone dark. The following morning, Tabitha stood outside the Jenkins cabin with her meager possessions, a hastily sewn bundle containing a borrowed dress, a hairbrush salvaged from the ruins, and her mother's wedding ring, which she'd kept in a pouch around her neck even while sleeping. Everything else she owned was now gone. "You sure about this?" Mr. Jenkins asked, helping load her bundle into Noah Daniels' wagon. "Daniels keeps to himself mostly. Folks say he's been odd since coming back from the war." "I don't have much choice," Tabitha replied simply. "Mrs. Jenkins pressed a small parcel into her hands. "Some bread and preserves, and this." She handed Tabitha a worn Bible. "Everyone needs the good book, especially in hard times." Tabitha accepted both gifts with genuine gratitude. "Thank you for everything." The ranch hand driving the wagon, who'd introduced himself as Hank, clicked his tongue at the horses, and they set off down the dusty road leading out of town. Tabitha did not look back at the smoldering remains of her family's homestead as they passed. She couldn't bear it. The Rocking D Ranch spread across rolling hills and valleys, its boundaries marked by sturdy fencing and natural barriers. Cattle dotted the landscape, fat and healthy despite the approaching winter. As they crested a hill, the ranch house came into view, a substantial two-story structure built of solid timber and stone, with a wide porch wrapping around three sides. Several outbuildings, barns, and bunkhouses completed the picture of prosperity. "Mr. Daniels built most of it himself," Hank offered, noticing her wide-eyed appraisal. "After he came back from fighting with the Union. Started with nothing but determination and some savings from his military pay." Tabitha nodded, trying to reconcile this information with the taciturn man she'd met at her family's funeral. A small, round woman with iron-gray hair pulled into a severe bun stood waiting on the porch. As the wagon pulled up, she descended the steps with surprising agility for her age. "You must be Miss Everett," she said, her accent revealing her Mexican heritage. "I am Elena Rodriguez. Come, you must be exhausted." Tabitha allowed herself to be led into the house, immediately struck by its warmth and unexpected elegance. The floors were polished wood, the furniture solid and well-crafted. A stone fireplace dominated the main room, and the kitchen beyond was spacious and well-equipped. "Mr. Daniels said you would help with the cooking and cleaning, Mrs. Rodriguez explained, showing Tabitha to a small but comfortable bedroom on the second floor. "I will show you our routines. The men work hard and eat like starving wolves. Can you make bread?" "Yes," Tabitha answered. "My mother taught me." A shadow crossed the older woman's face. "I heard about your family. Lo siento mucho, I am very sorry. It is a terrible thing to lose those you love." The simple, heartfelt condolence nearly broke Tabitha's carefully maintained composure. She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. "Thank you," she managed. "When do I start, Mrs. Rodriguez patted her arm. "Rest today. Tomorrow is soon enough. Mr. Daniels is out with the herd and won't be back until supper. I will call you when the meal is ready." Left alone, Tabitha sat on the edge of the bed, feeling oddly dislocated. Just 5 days ago, she'd fallen asleep in her childhood home, secure in the knowledge that her parents slept nearby. Now, she was essentially a servant in a stranger's house, with nothing to her name but charity and grief. She unpacked her few possessions, placing her mother's ring carefully on the small bedside table. Then, despite her determination to remain strong, she buried her face in the unfamiliar pillow and wept until exhaustion claimed her. Tabitha awoke to gentle knocking. Disoriented, she sat up quickly, momentarily forgetting where she was until reality crashed back. "Miss Everett," Mrs. Rodriguez called. "Dinner is ready if you're hungry." Tabitha splashed water on her face from the basin provided, attempting to erase the evidence of her tears. She smoothed her borrowed dress and descended to the kitchen, where delicious aromas filled the air. To her surprise, Noah Daniels sat at the head of a large wooden table, deep in conversation with an older man whose weathered face spoke of decades under the Montana sun. "Ah, there she is, Mrs. Rodriguez announced. "Miss Everett, you know Mr. Daniels, and this is Mr. Franklin, our foreman." Noah rose politely, his expression inscrutable. "Miss Everett, I trust your accommodations are satisfactory." "Yes, thank you," Tabitha murmured, taking the indicated seat. She felt acutely aware of her red-rimmed eyes and rumpled appearance. Mr. Franklin nodded a greeting. "Sorry about your folks, miss. Your pa did some fine work on my cabin roof last spring." Conversation flowed around her during the meal, mostly ranch business that made little sense to Tabitha. Noah occasionally glanced her way but addressed no direct questions to her, for which she was grateful. Her emotions felt too raw, too close to the surface. After dinner, Noah cleared his throat. "Miss Everett, a moment of your time." He led her to his study, a room lined with bookshelves that surprised Tabitha with their contents, volumes of history, philosophy, and literature, alongside practical manuals on ranching and agriculture. "I realize this is an adjustment," he began awkwardly, gesturing for her to sit. "Mrs. Rodriguez will show you your duties, but I wanted to clarify expectations." "Of course," Tabitha replied stiffly, wondering if he regretted his charitable impulse already. "Your father mentioned once that you had some education." Tabitha nodded. "My mother taught school back east before marrying. She made sure I could read, write, and cipher." A look of approval crossed Noah's face. "Good. In addition to helping Mrs. Rodriguez, I'd appreciate assistance with correspondence and account books when needed. I'll pay extra for those services." "You're already being more than generous, Mr. Daniels." His expression softened momentarily. "Your father helped me when I first arrived here with nothing but ambition and ignorance about ranching. Consider this repayment of a debt, not charity." Something in his tone made Tabitha look more closely at him. Behind his reserved manner, she glimpsed something unexpected, perhaps a hint of understanding of what it meant to start with nothing. "Thank you," she said simply. "I'll work hard." He nodded once, seeming relieved the conversation was concluding. "One more thing. I've sent men to salvage what they can from your homestead. Whatever can be recovered will be brought here." The unexpected kindness caught Tabitha off guard. "That's very thoughtful." "It seemed the proper thing to do," he replied, his formal tone returning. "Good night, Miss Everett." As she returned to her room, Tabitha felt a curious mixture of emotions. Grief still dominated, but beneath it stirred something else, a tentative gratitude toward the enigmatic rancher who'd offered her refuge when she had nowhere else to go. The next morning, Tabitha rose before dawn, determined to prove her worth. She dressed quickly in her borrowed attire and made her way to the kitchen, where Mrs. Rodriguez was already preparing breakfast for the ranch hands. "Ah, you're up early," the older woman smiled. "Good. We feed 15 hungry men before they start work. Can you manage the biscuits while I prepare the bacon and eggs?" Tabitha quickly found her rhythm in the spacious kitchen. By the time the ranch hands filed in for breakfast, she had 3 dozen biscuits cooling on racks and a pot of gravy simmering on the stove. The men were respectful if curious about the newcomer, removing hats and offering condolences for her loss. Noah Daniels ate quickly and departed with minimal conversation, leaving Tabitha wondering if he always maintained such distance or if her presence made him uncomfortable. "He's not much for words," Mrs. Rodriguez explained later as they washed the breakfast dishes. "Always been that way, even before the war, but he's a good man, fair to his workers, generous when folks need help. He mentioned my father helped him. Mrs. Rodriguez nodded. When Mr. Daniels first bought this land, it was nothing but open range with a broken-down cabin. Your father helped build this house, taught him carpentry skills. Mr. Daniels never forgets a kindness. The days fell into a pattern. Tabitha rose early to help with breakfast, spent mornings cleaning and doing laundry and afternoons baking or mending. Noah was often absent, working with the cattle or handling business in town, but when present, he maintained a polite distance. Sometimes, she caught him watching her with an unreadable expression that made her heart beat faster for reasons she couldn't explain. A week after her arrival, Hank and another ranch hand named Caleb arrived with a wagon containing items salvaged from the Everett homestead, a singed family Bible, a trunk of clothing that had been stored in an underground cellar, her father's tools, and remarkably, a small portrait of her parents on their wedding day, somehow protected from the flames. Tabitha stood staring at the portrait, tears streaming unchecked down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered to the ranch hands. "You don't know what this means to me." That evening, Noah found her on the porch, watching the sunset. "Were the salvaged items satisfactory?" he asked, leaning against the porch railing. "More than I dared hope for," Tabitha replied honestly. "Especially my parents' portrait. I thought I'd lost everything tangible to remember them by." Noah nodded, seeming to struggle with something. Finally, he said, "I know something about loss, Miss Everett. Not the same as yours, but I understand the need for physical reminders of those gone." It was the most personal statement he'd made to her. "The war?" she asked gently, partially. His gaze drifted to the distant mountains. "I had a wife once, Mary. She died in childbirth our first year here along with our son." Tabitha's heart constricted at the simple, devastating statement. "I'm so sorry." "It was 8 years ago." His voice was matter-of-fact, but Tabitha sensed the wound remained raw. "I mention it only so you know that I understand grief is not something that follows a predictable course. Take whatever time you need." Before she could respond, he straightened. "Good night, Miss Everett." Tabitha watched him stride away, seeing him in a new light. The reserved rancher suddenly seemed less enigmatic and more human, a man who understood profound loss firsthand. As October gave way to November, the first snow dusted the Montana landscape. Tabitha had settled into life at the Rocking D, finding unexpected comfort in routine and productivity. Her borrowed clothes had been replaced by her own recovered garments, carefully washed and mended. The ranch hands treated her with respect bordering on protective deference, and Mrs. Rodriguez had become something of a maternal figure, teaching her to cook Mexican dishes and sharing stories of her youth in Sonora. Only with Noah did Tabitha maintain a curious distance, not unfriendly, but guarded. Their interactions were polite, even warm at times, but brief. He seemed to deliberately avoid being alone with her, which both relieved and oddly disappointed her. One bitterly cold morning in early December, Tabitha was gathering eggs when she heard shouting from the corrals. Hurrying toward the commotion, she saw ranch hands scrambling to control a magnificent black stallion that reared and kicked, eyes rolling in terror. "Get back!" Noah shouted at his men, approaching the frenzied animal with slow, measured steps. "He's more afraid than dangerous." Tabitha watched, breath caught in her throat, as Noah spoke in low tones to the horse, gradually moving closer despite the animal's threatening hooves. The stallion's wild eyes fixed on Noah, nostrils flaring. "Easy, boy," Noah murmured, voice carrying in the still morning air. "No one's going to hurt you here." With infinite patience, he extended his hand, palm flat, letting the horse catch his scent. Minutes stretched as man and beast engaged in silent communication. Gradually, the stallion's breathing slowed, his posture relaxing incrementally. "That's it," Noah encouraged. "You're safe now." To the amazement of everyone watching, the stallion eventually lowered his head, allowing Noah to stroke his muzzle. The transformation was remarkable, from wild terror to cautious trust. "He's got away with damaged creatures," Mr. Franklin commented, suddenly beside Tabitha. "Always has." "The horse is injured?" she asked, noticing for the first time the healing gash along the animal's flank. "Found him half-starved, caught in barbed wire near the North Ridge," Franklin explained. "Most would have put him down, but Mr. Daniels insisted on bringing him in." Later that afternoon, Tabitha brought coffee to the stable where Noah was treating the stallion's wounds. "Mr. Franklin said you're a miracle worker with horses," she said, offering the steaming mug. Noah accepted it with a grateful nod. "Not miracles, just patience and respect. Animals know when you mean them harm or good." Tabitha watched him gently apply salve to the horse's injury. "Does he have a name?" "Midnight," Noah replied, a rare smile softening his features. "Seemed fitting. He's beautiful." "He is." Noah's voice held genuine admiration. "Wild spirits often are, but they need time to trust again when they've been hurt." Tabitha had the distinct feeling they weren't just discussing the horse anymore. "Some wounds leave scars," she said softly. Noah's blue eyes met hers, holding her gaze longer than usual. "Yes, but scars mean you survived." Something shifted between them in that quiet moment, a recognition of shared understanding that transcended words. Tabitha felt her cheeks warm under his steady gaze. "Mrs. Rodriguez sent apple pie with the coffee," she said, breaking the spell. "She said you have a weakness for it." Noah's smile widened. "Mrs. Rodriguez knows me too well." As December progressed, the ranch prepared for a harsh Montana winter. Tabitha found herself increasingly involved in ranch operations beyond her kitchen duties. Her education proved valuable as she helped Noah with correspondence and bookkeeping in the evenings, sitting across from him at his desk while snow piled against the windows. "You have a good head for figures," he commented one night after she'd reconciled a discrepancy in the ledgers. "Better than mine. My mother insisted mathematics was as important for girls as boys," Tabitha explained. "She was ahead of her time in many ways." "She raised a remarkable daughter," Noah said quietly, then looked almost surprised at his own words. Tabitha felt warmth spread through her chest at the unexpected compliment. "Thank you." Their eyes met across the desk, and neither looked away immediately. Something unspoken passed between them, acknowledgement of growing regard that both seemed reluctant to name. The moment ended when Mrs. Rodriguez knocked, announcing that a ranch hand had returned from town with mail and supplies. Christmas approached, bringing a festive atmosphere to the rocking D despite the brutal cold. Mrs. Rodriguez enlisted Tabitha's help in preparing traditional Mexican Christmas dishes, alongside American favorites. The ranch hands decorated the main house with pine boughs and homemade ornaments, and Noah surprised everyone by producing a crate of oranges, an expensive luxury in Montana winter, to be distributed on Christmas morning. On Christmas Eve, Tabitha found herself unexpectedly emotional. The holiday traditions reminded her painfully of her lost family, yet she felt grateful for the community that had taken her in. After helping serve a magnificent feast to the ranch hands, she slipped outside to the porch, needing a moment alone with her complicated emotions. Snow fell in lazy spirals, illuminated by lantern light from the windows. Tabitha pulled her shawl tighter, watching her breath form clouds in the frigid air. "It's a bit cold for stargazing," Noah's voice came from behind her, Tabitha turned, offering a small smile. I just needed some air. Noah nodded, understanding in his eyes. He joined her at the railing, a respectable distance away. The first holiday after loss is the hardest. I spent my first Christmas after Mary died in this exact spot, wondering how the world could keep turning when mine had stopped. The admission touched Tabitha deeply. Does it get easier? Different, he corrected gently. Not easier exactly. You build a new life around the hole they left. Eventually, the edges of that hole don't cut quite so sharply. They stood in companionable silence, watching the snow transform the ranch into a glittering wonderland. Then Noah reached into his coat pocket. I have something for you, he said, suddenly seeming uncharacteristically nervous. An early Christmas gift. He extended a small package wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. Tabitha accepted it with surprise. You didn't need to, I wanted to, he interrupted. Open it. Her cold fingers fumbled with the string. Inside the paper was a small wooden box, exquisitely carved with a pattern of wildflowers. When she opened it, a delicate melody played a music box. It's beautiful, she whispered, genuinely touched. I made the box, Noah explained. The mechanism came from back east, I thought. I thought you might like something that belonged only to your new life, not just salvaged pieces of the old. The thoughtfulness of the gift brought tears to Tabitha's eyes. Thank you. I'll treasure it. Impulsively, she reached out and squeezed his hand. Noah looked momentarily startled, then covered her smaller hand with his own. They stood like that, connected by more than touch as snowflakes drifted around them. Merry Christmas, Tabitha, he said softly, using her given name for the first time. Merry Christmas, Noah, she replied, her heart suddenly lighter than it had been in months. The new year brought brutal blizzards that isolated the ranch for weeks. Tabitha found herself increasingly drawn to Noah's company during the long evenings, when they would sit by the fire reading or playing chess. He was teaching her the game, showing unexpected patience with her beginner's mistakes and genuine pleasure in her quick learning. Checkmate, she announced one evening in late January, unable to keep the triumphant smile from her face. Noah stared at the board in disbelief, then broke into laughter, a rich, warm sound she'd rarely heard from him. Well played. I believe I've created a monster. A worthy opponent, she corrected, enjoying the easy camaraderie that had developed between them. Indeed. His smile lingered as he reset the pieces. Another game. As they played, Noah spoke of his dreams for the ranch, expanding the herd, breeding better stock, perhaps building a larger barn come spring. Tabitha listened, asking thoughtful questions that showed genuine interest. You speak as if you'll be here to see it, he observed, capturing one of her pawns. Tabitha paused, suddenly uncertain. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to presume. No, he interrupted quickly. I didn't mean it that way. You're welcome here as long as you wish to stay. I wonder about your plans. The question caught her off guard. In truth, she hadn't allowed herself to think beyond immediate survival since the fire. I don't have plans, she admitted. Before the fire, I expected to help my parents with the farm, perhaps marry eventually if a suitable match appeared. Now, she shrugged helplessly. You're young, Noah said carefully. Beautiful. Intelligent. You could have many options. Return to your mother's family back east, perhaps. Or. He hesitated. Or, she prompted. Or make a life here in Montana, he finished, his eyes fixed on the chessboard. It's a hard land, but rewarding to those who persevere. Something in his tone made Tabitha's heart beat faster. I've grown fond of Montana, she said softly, and its people. Their eyes met across the chessboard, and for a moment, Tabitha thought Noah might say more. But Mrs. Rodriguez entered with coffee, breaking the moment. February brought slightly milder weather, allowing ranch operations to resume a more normal pace. Tabitha had fully integrated into the rhythm of the rocking D, her presence no longer a novelty but an essential part of daily life. She managed the household with growing confidence, freeing Mrs. Rodriguez from the heavier work while learning from the older woman's experience. One afternoon, she was hanging laundry when she noticed Noah in the corral with Midnight. The stallion's recovery had been remarkable. The wild terror that had characterized him initially had given way to proud strength, tempered with growing trust. Noah was attempting to saddle him for the first time, a delicate process given the horse's history. Tabitha paused in her work to watch, admiring the gentle patience with which Noah approached the skittish animal. "Easy now," she heard him murmur. "This isn't so different from the blanket you've gotten used to, just a little heavier." Midnight snorted suspiciously at the saddle but allowed Noah to place it carefully on his back. When the cinch was tightened, however, the stallion reared suddenly, nearly striking Noah with his hooves. Tabitha gasped, dropping the sheet she'd been about to hang. But Noah remained calm, speaking reassuringly to the frightened horse until he settled. "We'll try again tomorrow," he told Midnight, removing the saddle. "No rush." As Noah exited the corral, he noticed Tabitha watching. "Enjoying the show?" he called, a smile playing at his lips. "I'm impressed by your patience," she replied honestly. "Most men would have given up on him by now. Some things are worth the wait." His gaze held hers a moment longer than necessary before he added, "Need help with that laundry?" Tabitha blinked in surprise. "The owner of the rocking D offering to hang sheets." "The owner of the rocking D offering to help a lady with a chore," he corrected, taking the fallen sheet from her hands. Their fingers brushed, sending an unexpected thrill up Tabitha's arm. They worked together in companionable silence for a while, the domestic task somehow made special by Noah's participation. Tabitha found herself stealing glances at him, the way the February sun highlighted the golden strands in his dark beard, how his strong hands managed the delicate task of hanging linens without tearing them. "What?" he asked, catching her looking. Tabitha felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I was just thinking how different you are from my first impression." "How so?" He secured a pillowcase with a wooden pin. "When we met at my parents' funeral, you seemed distant, unapproachable." Noah considered this. "I'm not good with grief, other people's or my own. Words fail me when they're most needed." "Actions speak louder anyway," Tabitha said softly. "You've shown more kindness through what you've done than most show in a lifetime of empty condolences." Noah stilled, a sheet half hung in his hands. "I've tried to be fair, to honor your father's memory, to give you time to find your footing. You've done more than that." Tabitha found courage to say what she'd been feeling for weeks. "You've given me a home when I had none, purpose when I'd lost mine." Noah's blue eyes darkened with emotion. He reached out, hesitantly touching her cheek with work-roughened fingers. "You've brought something back to this ranch that's been missing a long time, Tabitha. Life. Warmth." The tenderness in his voice made her breath catch. For a suspended moment, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he lowered his hand, the moment passing like a cloud shadow across the prairie. "We should finish before the wind picks up," he said, returning to the laundry with focused attention. Tabitha nodded, both disappointed and relieved. Whatever was growing between them felt fragile, precious, worth the patience Noah showed with his wild stallion. March arrived with the promise of spring, though Montana's unpredictable weather still delivered occasional snow squalls. Calving season kept the ranch hands working around the clock, and Tabitha found herself cooking massive meals at all hours to keep the exhausted men fed. One stormy night, she was awakened by urgent knocking. Mrs. Rodriguez stood in the hallway, her gray hair in a braid down her back. "Mr. Daniels needs help," she explained. "A difficult birth in the barn. He asks for you specifically." Hurriedly dressing in warm clothes, Tabitha followed the housekeeper through swirling snow to the main barn. Inside, lanterns illuminated a scene of concentrated urgency. Noah knelt beside a heifer in obvious distress, his sleeves rolled up and arms bloodied to the elbows. "She's trying to deliver twins," he explained without preamble. "First one came normally, but the second is turned wrong. I need smaller hands than mine." Tabitha hesitated only momentarily before kneeling beside him. "Tell me what to do." For the next hour, they worked together to save both calf and mother, Noah instructing, Tabitha following his guidance with steady hands despite her lack of experience. When the second calf finally emerged, alive but weak, the relief in the barn was palpable. "Well done," Noah murmured, helping Tabitha to her feet. They were both exhausted, covered in substances Tabitha preferred not to identify but exhilarated by their success. "Will they survive?" she asked, watching the mother cow begin to clean her calves. "Thanks to you, I believe they will." Noah's voice held genuine admiration. "Most city-raised women would have fainted at the suggestion of what you just did." Tabitha smiled tiredly. "I'm not most women." "No," he agreed, his expression softening as he looked at her. "You certainly are not." They walked back to the house together, the storm having subsided to gentle snowfall. At the porch steps, Noah stopped her with a light touch on her arm. "Tabitha," he began, then seemed to struggle for words. "I want to ask you something," her heart quickened. "Yes," he took a deep breath. "Spring is coming, with it options. You could return to town, perhaps open a dressmaking shop with your sewing skills, or teach with your education." Confusion replaced anticipation. "Are you suggesting I leave?" "No." The vehemence in his voice startled both of them. More quietly he continued, "No, I'm asking what you want for your future." Tabitha looked up at him, snow catching in her eyelashes. "I want to stay," she said simply. "Here at the Rocking D." Relief washed over his features. "As an employee," the question hung between them, laden with unspoken meaning. Tabitha gathered her courage. "Is that all I am to you, Noah, an employee?" His eyes darkened. "You know it's not." His voice dropped lower. "You must know how I've come to feel about you." "How would I know?" she challenged gently. "You've never said." Noah stepped closer, his breath forming clouds in the cold air between them. "I'm saying it now, then. These months with you have brought light back into my life when I thought it was gone forever. You're brave, kind, intelligent, everything I never dared hope to find again." He took her gloved hands in his. "I'm asking you to stay, Tabitha. Not as my housekeeper or bookkeeper, but as my wife, if you'll have me." Joy bloomed in Tabitha's chest, unexpected and overwhelming after so many months of grief and uncertainty. "Yes," she whispered, tears forming despite her smile. "Yes, I'll have you." Noah's face transformed with happiness. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle, questioning at first, then deepening as Tabitha responded with all the emotion that had been building between them. When they finally parted, both breathing quickly, Noah rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for months," he confessed. "Why didn't you?" she asked, her hands resting on his chest. "You needed time to heal, and I needed to be sure I wasn't just using your vulnerability, that what I felt was real. And now," his smile was tender, "now I'm certain I love you, Tabitha Everett, not because you needed saving, but because you saved yourself and in doing so saved me too." Tabitha reached up to touch his face, marveling at this unexpected turn her life had taken. "I love you too. From tragedy came something I never imagined finding." The engagement announcement caused a stir of excitement among the ranch hands and in Durango, where the news traveled quickly through the small community. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had quietly observed the growing attachment between them, showed no surprise but great satisfaction. "It's about time," she told Tabitha, hugging her warmly. "That man has been half alive for too long. You bring him back to himself." As winter relinquished its grip on Montana, Tabitha found herself planning both a wedding and the expansions to the ranch Noah had envisioned. Together, they pored over designs for a larger barn, discussed breeding programs for the expanding herd, and even plotted a substantial garden that would supplement the ranch's food supplies. "You're thinking like a rancher's wife already," Noah observed one evening as they reviewed their plans. "Is that a complaint?" she teased, comfortable now with their easy affection. "A compliment." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "Your practical mind is one of the many reasons I love you." April brought the first wildflowers and final preparations for their wedding, scheduled for the first Sunday in May. Noah surprised Tabitha by commissioning a proper wedding dress from the seamstress in Helena, having it delivered by special courier. "You shouldn't have," she protested weakly, running her fingers over the fine ivory fabric and delicate lace. "Yes, I should," he countered. "You deserve everything beautiful in this world, Tabitha." The night before their wedding, Tabitha found herself unable to sleep, filled with a mixture of excitement and wistful sadness that her parents wouldn't witness her marriage. She slipped downstairs, intending to make tea, and found Noah similarly restless, sitting on the porch despite the cool night air. "Shouldn't you be resting for tomorrow?" she asked, joining him on the bench. "Couldn't sleep." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Too many thoughts." "Good ones, I hope," Noah nodded, his expression visible in the moonlight. "Mostly. Thinking about how life changes so unexpectedly. A year ago, I was resigned to solitude. Now I'm hours away from marrying the most remarkable woman I've ever known." Tabitha leaned against him, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "I was thinking about my parents," she admitted, "wishing they could see tomorrow." Noah tightened his arm around her. "I believe they will in their way." They sat in contemplative silence until Noah spoke again. "I have a wedding gift for you. I was going to wait until tomorrow, but perhaps now is better." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded document, handing it to Tabitha. In the dim light, she could just make out the official stamps and legal language. "What is this?" "The deed to your family's land," Noah explained. "I purchased it from the bank after the fire. It's yours now to do with as you wish." Tabitha stared at him, astounded. "You bought our homestead. Why?" "Because I couldn't bear the thought of strangers living where your family built their dreams." His voice was earnest. "We can rebuild there if you want, or sell it, or keep it as a memorial. The choice is yours." Tears filled Tabitha's eyes at the profound thoughtfulness of his gift. "Noah Daniels," she whispered, "how did I find someone like you when I'd lost everything else?" "Perhaps that's how it works," he suggested, gently wiping away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "Sometimes we have to lose everything to make room for something new." Their wedding day dawned clear and mild, as if Montana itself approved of the union. The ceremony took place in the front yard of the Rocking D, with ranch hands and townspeople gathered to witness. Mr. Jenkins, who had sheltered Tabitha in those first devastating days, performed the ceremony as the local justice of the peace. Tabitha wore her mother's ring alongside the new gold band Noah placed on her finger. As they spoke their vows beneath an arch decorated with early spring blossoms, Tabitha felt a sense of completion, not an erasing of past grief, but a weaving of it into the fabric of a new life. "I, Noah, take you, Tabitha, to be my lawfully wedded wife." Noah's strong voice carried clearly across the assembled guests. To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part. When Tabitha repeated the vows, her voice did not waver. She knew with complete certainty that this was where she belonged with this man on this land, building a future neither of them had imagined possible months before. By the authority vested in me by the territory of Montana, Mr. Jenkins concluded, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Noah's kiss was tender yet possessed a promise that made Tabitha blush when they finally parted to the cheers and applause of their guests. The celebration continued well into the evening, with dancing, feasting, and heartfelt toasts to the new couple. As sunset painted the Montana sky in spectacular colors, Noah led Tabitha away from the festivities to the corral, where Midnight watched with intelligent eyes. He's fully recovered, Tabitha observed, noting the stallion's sleek coat and proud bearing. Yes. Noah opened the gate, approaching the horse with the quiet confidence that had won the animal's trust, and ready for his first real ride. To Tabitha's surprise, Noah lifted her onto Midnight's back before mounting behind her. The stallion tensed momentarily but remained steady. Are you sure this is safe? She asked as Noah's arms encircled her to take the reins. I trust him, Noah replied simply, and he trusts me now. They rode away from the ranch house, climbing a gentle slope that offered a panoramic view of the rocking D spread out below them. The setting sun gilded the buildings, pastures, and distant mountains in golden light. It's breathtaking, Tabitha murmured, leaning back against her husband's chest. This is what I wanted to show you, Noah said, his voice close to her ear. Everything you can see and beyond to that far ridge is ours now, together. Tabitha turned slightly to see his face. It's a lot of responsibility. Yes, but we'll build something lasting here. His arms tightened around her. A legacy, a home for generations to come. The word generations sent a pleasant warmth through Tabitha. Children, she asked softly, if we're blessed. Noah's voice held both hope and caution. After losing Mary and our son, I never thought I'd want to risk that pain again. But with you, I want everything, Tabitha. A full life with all its joys and sorrows. Tabitha placed her hands over his where they held the reins. We'll face whatever comes together. As the sun disappeared beyond the mountains, they rode back to their home, to the new life they would build from the ashes of past tragedy. Summer brought prosperity to the rocking D. The calving season had been successful, with minimal losses despite the difficult winter. Cattle prices were strong, and Noah's careful breeding program was producing results that drew buyers from as far as Denver. Tabitha settled into her role as Mrs. Daniels with natural grace, managing the household, keeping the books, and even participating in some aspects of ranch work. In July, they began construction on the new barn Noah had planned, using lumber milled from trees on their own property. Tabitha often brought lunch to the work site, enjoying the camaraderie of the men and Noah's obvious pride in her. Mrs. Daniels has the best hand with biscuits in 3 counties, Hank declared one afternoon, helping himself to a second serving. And she makes the finest ranch wife this side of the Mississippi, Noah added, winking at Tabitha across the impromptu picnic. Her happiness in these moments was almost overwhelming, a sharp contrast to the devastation she'd felt less than a year before. Sometimes guilt accompanied her joy, as if being happy somehow dishonored her family's memory. Noah seemed to sense these moments, offering quiet understanding without pressing her to explain. One evening in late August, as they sat on the porch watching a spectacular sunset, Tabitha finally voiced these feelings. Sometimes I wonder if I've moved forward too quickly, she admitted. if I've forgotten them somehow by finding happiness again. Noah was silent for a moment, considering his words carefully. When Mary died, an old rancher gave me advice I couldn't appreciate then. He said, "Grief is the price we pay for love, but refusing joy dishonors that love." I didn't understand until much later. He took Tabitha's hand. "Your parents raised you to live fully, to love deeply. The best way to honor them is to do exactly that." Tabitha leaned against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his wisdom. "When did you become so philosophical, Mr. Daniels?" "About the time a certain brown-haired, strong-willed woman came into my life and made me rethink everything I thought I knew," he replied, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only when Tabitha said quietly, "I have something to tell you." Noah turned to look at her, curiosity in his eyes. "What is it?" Tabitha took a deep breath, sudden nerves fluttering in her stomach. I'm quite certain actually, that we're going to have a baby, in early spring." For a moment Noah stared at her, shock evident on his face. Then, to Tabitha's alarm, his eyes filled with tears, the first she'd ever seen from him. "Noah," she whispered, suddenly uncertain. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could feel his heart racing. "A baby," he repeated, voice thick with emotion. "Our baby." When he finally released her, the joy on his face erased any doubt. "Are you happy then?" she asked, though the answer was obvious. Happy doesn't begin to describe it. He placed a gentle hand on her still flat stomach. "Terrified, yes, but mostly grateful for this second chance at family. For you." As autumn painted the Montana landscape in brilliant colors, the rocking D prepared for both winter and the coming baby. Noah insisted on hiring additional help so Tabitha could rest more, though she protested that pregnancy hadn't diminished her abilities. "Humor me," he told her, after finding her attempting to move a heavy trunk in their bedroom. "I've waited too long for this happiness to risk it." Mrs. Rodriguez proved an invaluable source of advice and support, sharing folk wisdom about pregnancy and childbirth that complemented the more clinical information provided by the doctor in Durango. The entire ranch seemed to rally around their expecting mistress, with ranch hands offering to fetch anything she needed and bringing small gifts for the baby, hand-carved toys, a tiny pair of leather boots, a beautiful cradle crafted by 3 cowboys working in secret during evening hours. In October, exactly 1 year after the fire that had claimed Tabitha's family, Noah suggested they visit the Everett homestead. They rode in the wagon, as Tabitha's pregnancy made horseback riding inadvisable, the journey taking most of the morning. The site had been cleared of debris, though charred remnants of the foundation remained visible. Wild grasses had begun reclaiming the yard, and a simple wooden cross marked the family cemetery on the hill. Tabitha stood silently, one hand resting on her slightly swollen abdomen, the other holding tightly to Noah's. A year ago, she had thought her life ended here. Now she stood with her husband, carrying their child, her future stretched before her, full of promise. "What do you want to do with this land?" Noah asked quietly. "It's been a year since I gave you the deed. You've never told me your decision." Tabitha surveyed the property, memories washing over her. "I've been thinking about that," she said slowly. "What if we built a school here? The children in this area have to travel so far for education. My mother would have liked that." Noah's face lit with approval. "A school would be a fitting tribute. We could hire a teacher, or perhaps you might teach yourself when our children are old enough." Children, plural. Tabitha teased, though the idea warmed her heart. "At least 2, Noah replied, eyes twinkling. "Maybe 3. The rocking D will need proper heirs." As they prepared to depart, Tabitha placed wildflowers on the family graves, whispering a private farewell. She felt a sense of peace settle over her, not forgetting, but accepting, moving forward while carrying her loved ones in her heart. Winter arrived early that year, blanketing the ranch in snow before November's end. The new barn stood completed, providing expanded shelter for livestock and storage for the abundant hay harvest. Inside the main house, preparations for the baby continued, with a nursery established in the room adjoining Noah and Tabitha's bedroom. Christmas was celebrated with particular joy, the ranch house filled with greenery, handmade decorations, and the delicious aromas of Mrs. Rodriguez's cooking. Noah presented Tabitha with a rocking chair he'd crafted himself, the wood polished to a warm glow, the seat and back cushioned with soft padding. For midnight feedings and lullabies, he explained, helping her settle into it beside the fireplace. Tabitha's gift to Noah was a handsome leather-bound journal. For recording the ranch's history, she said, and our families, so our children will know their heritage, both sides of it. That night, as they lay in bed listening to wind whistle around the eaves, Noah placed his hand on Tabitha's rounded belly, marveling at the strong kicks of their active child. "I never thought I'd know this feeling again," he admitted. "After Mary, I closed myself off from even the possibility. And now," Tabitha covered his hand with her own, "now I understand that hearts are stronger than we give them credit for." His voice was thoughtful in the darkness. "They can break completely, yet somehow still find the capacity to love again even more deeply for having known loss." February brought severe blizzards that isolated the ranch for weeks. Tabitha's due date approached, bringing increasing discomfort and Noah's mounting concern about accessing medical help if needed. "We should have gone to town last month," he fretted, watching her struggle to find a comfortable position in her rocking chair. "Stayed there until the baby arrived. And miss experiencing this at home." Tabitha shook her head firmly. "Mrs. Rodriguez has delivered dozens of babies. Between her and your experience with calving, I'm in capable hands." Noah looked horrified at the comparison, making Tabitha laugh despite her discomfort. "I'm perfectly healthy," she assured him. "Women have been having babies without doctors since the beginning of time." Despite her brave words, Tabitha felt the first twinge of fear when labor began during the worst storm of the season. The contractions started gradually in the afternoon, intensifying as evening approached. By midnight, there was no denying that their child was determined to enter the world during the blizzard. Mrs. Rodriguez took charge, transforming their bedroom into an improvised birthing room with practiced efficiency. Noah refused to leave Tabitha's side despite the housekeeper's initial attempts to banish him to the hallway. "My place is here," he said firmly, holding Tabitha's hand as another contraction racked her body. The labor progressed slowly through the night, each hour seeming longer than the last. Tabitha fought against exhaustion and pain, drawing strength from Noah's unwavering presence and encouragement. "You're the strongest person I've ever known," he told her, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "You can do this." As dawn broke, visible only as a slight lightening of the gray storm outside their window, Tabitha felt a sudden change, an overwhelming urge to push. "The baby is coming now," Mrs. Rodriguez announced, positioning herself at the foot of the bed. What followed was a blur of pain, effort, and finally miraculous release. The sound of a newborn's indignant cry filled the room, bringing tears to both parents' eyes. "A boy," Mrs. Rodriguez announced, quickly cleaning and wrapping the squalling infant. "A strong, healthy son." She placed the tiny bundle in Tabitha's arms. Noah leaned close, his face transformed with wonder as he gazed at their child, a perfect blend of them both, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that, when they briefly opened, showed hints of his father's blue. "Hello, little one," Tabitha whispered, overwhelmed by love for this new life they'd created. "We've been waiting for you." Noah touched his son's cheek with a gentle finger. "What shall we call him?" They had discussed names but hadn't settled on final choices. Now, looking at their son's face, Tabitha knew. "Samuel," she said softly, "after my father, and Thomas for your father, if that's agreeable." "Samuel Thomas Daniels." Noah tested the name, nodding approval. A name with history, a name to grow into, as Mrs. Rodriguez quietly slipped from the room to give the new family privacy. Noah carefully sat on the edge of the bed, one arm around Tabitha, the other supporting their son's head. "Thank you," he murmured against Tabitha's hair. "For what?" "For giving me back everything I thought I'd lost forever. For making me believe in second chances." Tabitha looked up at him, exhausted but radiating happiness. "We built this together, Noah. From ashes and heartbreak, we created something beautiful." Outside, the storm began to subside, weak sunshine breaking through the clouds. A new day dawned for the expanded Daniels family, full of promise and possibility. Spring arrived early that year, as if nature itself celebrated young Samuel's arrival. The baby thrived, growing stronger each day, his serious expressions giving way to occasional smiles that melted his parents' hearts. Noah proved an attentive father, often carrying Samuel in a sling while checking on ranch operations, proudly introducing his son to horses, cattle, and the vast Montana landscape that would be his heritage. Tabitha recovered quickly from childbirth, resuming many of her duties while adapting to motherhood with natural grace. The ranch hands treated the baby like a mascot, bringing small gifts and vying for opportunities to make him smile. "He's going to be spoiled rotten," Tabitha observed one evening as she nursed Samuel in the rocking chair while Noah reviewed the spring planting plans. "He's the future of the rocking D," Noah replied, looking up from his papers with undisguised pride. "The first of a new generation." By summer, construction had begun on the school at the former Everett homestead. Noah had hired the best builders in the territory, determined that the structure would stand as a lasting memorial to Tabitha's family. The single-room schoolhouse took shape quickly, with large windows to capture natural light and a sturdy bell tower visible for miles across the prairie. In July, when Samuel was 5 months old, the family rode to the construction site to check progress. Tabitha held her son securely as Noah helped her from the wagon, the baby blinking in the bright sunshine. "What do you think?" Noah asked, gesturing to the nearly completed building. "Does it meet your vision?" Tabitha surveyed the schoolhouse, emotion tightening her throat. "It's perfect," she managed finally. "My parents would be so proud." "The town council has already begun interviewing teachers," Noah informed her. "They're hoping to open for the fall term." They picnicked in the shade of a cottonwood tree, spreading a blanket for Samuel to practice rolling over, his newest accomplishment. Watching her son's determined efforts, Tabitha felt a profound sense of rightness, as if the circle of life that had been so violently disrupted was slowly completing itself again. "A penny for your thoughts," Noah said, noticing her contemplative expression. "I was thinking about how much has changed in less than 2 years," she replied. "From the night of the fire to this moment, it seems impossible." Noah reached for her hand. "Not impossible, just the remarkable resilience of the human heart." Samuel, having successfully rolled onto his stomach, let out a crow of triumph that made both parents laugh. Life, Tabitha reflected, continued to unfold in unexpected ways, tragic and beautiful, challenging and rewarding. The fire had taken everything she'd known, but from those ashes had risen something she could never have imagined. A new home, a loving husband, a beautiful child and a future full of possibility. The Everett Memorial School opened that September, with a young teacher from Boston presiding over 28 students ranging from 6 to 16 years of age. Tabitha attended the dedication ceremony, holding Samuel on her hip, as Noah stood proudly beside her. A simple plaque beside the entrance acknowledged the land's former owners and their contribution to the community. As autumn once again painted the Montana landscape in brilliant hues, Tabitha found herself drawn to quiet reflection. On the anniversary of her arrival at the Rocking D, she rode with Noah to the hilltop overlooking the ranch, Samuel securely nestled in his father's arms. The view was magnificent, the main house and outbuildings, the new barn gleaming in the afternoon sun, cattle grazing peacefully in the distance, and beyond, the endless expanse of Montana sky. "Hard to believe it's been only 2 years," Noah commented, following her gaze. "2 years since I had nowhere to go," Tabitha agreed. "Since you offered me shelter when I'd lost everything." Noah shifted Samuel to one arm, using the other to draw Tabitha close to his side. "I thought I was helping you," he said softly. "I didn't realize you would save me too." Together they watched the sun begin its descent toward the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the land they both loved. Samuel babbled happily, reaching for his mother with chubby hands. "What do you think the future holds for him?" Tabitha asked, taking her son into her arms. Noah's gaze encompassed the ranch, the school visible in the distance, and the family he'd never expected to have. "Everything," he answered simply. "Love, challenges, opportunities, the chance to build on what we've started here." As they rode home in the golden light of late afternoon, Tabitha reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point, from devastation to abundance, from loss to love. The fire had indeed taken everything she'd had, but from that tragedy had emerged gifts she could never have imagined. A new home built by the hands of a man who cherished her, a son who embodied their hope for the future, and the profound understanding that even the darkest night eventually yields to dawn. The Rocking D Ranch would stand as testimony to that truth for generations to come, a legacy born of ashes, nurtured by love, and built to endure.